Are there any trendy health or longevity things that you don't do or that you want to myth bust? I mean, I heard you talking to Kay about resveratrol.
Oh,
And
yeah.
you guys were talking about how resveratrol was like the sexy, trendy, whatever it is, polyphenol. I don't even
Yeah.
know. And everybody was on the resveratrol train. And now it's kind of like we've
I
moved
mean,
on from that.
yeah, no, I mean, resveratrol was debunked like years ago.
Really?
So I don't even know why that one's on the table anymore. I think definitely, yeah, I mean, resveratrol is a great one. Let me think of if any more molecules specifically come to mind that I think are, just not worth it at all. I think the best way to do it is like, when it comes to supplementation, is just do a lab and figure out what you're deficient in and then target supplement, because obviously it's a massive industry and they want you to buy everything. I would say though, I think for women, we just have to be so much more careful. So I would say like myth busting that we can cold plunge every single day of the cycle. And of course, there's going to be a small subset of women that can, right? And they're going to be fine. But in general, we have so many more, we have an insane amount of hormonal fluctuations in comparison to men. Men, it's kind of like Groundhog Day. Like they have a 24-hour cycle of their hormones. So every day is the same. They can do anything they want, really. So we have to be a lot more careful. So I think it's a myth that, women and men should have the same longevity protocols. I think, even when it comes to fasting, again, everything is bio-individual. Listen to your body. But I think women are going to do best fasting in the follicular phase. We're going to do best with cold therapy in the follicular phase. We can use cold therapy, like higher temps, shorter times in the luteal phase if we are really careful, to help potentially with some of the PMS symptoms. PMS is another thing. This is also something I'm diving really deep in because I have 0 PMS symptoms. PMS symptoms are often coming from dysregulated hormones, right? And there's some things that you can do to help with those symptoms, like red light, help the pain, like the red light therapy or PEMF. But I think it needs to be like, we need to be having a broader conversation on why are we having PMS symptoms in the first place. When I got an explant, and you got one too, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so I got an explant. So when I got an explant, I had to take these antibiotics. And they really, of course, disrupted my gut, as to be expected. But that 1 month, I had these higher levels of estrogen because there's something in the gut called beta-glucuronidase. And it was elevated because my gut was, imbalanced. And if I didn't do the test, I would never know. But that month I had PMS symptoms. I had like cramping. It was horrible. I was like, I feel so bad for women now that this is what's going on a monthly basis. Because I was like, this is crazy. And I hadn't had it before. And then I was able to resolve it. But I think that's another big, topic.
Yeah, for me, it's interesting, and I won't go too off into this tangent, but I always had PMDD, like debilitating PMS, not so much with irritability, but with anxiety, like anxiety to the point that I couldn't function prior to my period. And then, of course, I've been dealing with this whole histamine thing, and I was like not functional until I got on antihistamines, which we did just to kind of put the fire out enough that I could then try to figure out like, okay, what's the root cause here? But ironically, when I was on the antihistamines, no PMDD. So there's like now it's supposed to be like a connection between histamine and estrogen and all of that, which I thought was so interesting. I mean, there's so many, we're so complicated.
We so
like
complicated.
Bottom line.
Unbelievably complicated.
Yeah.
I know. I feel so, sad about this like whole journey that you've had to go on. I wish we would have met earlier.
I know. Well, I think for a long time, I was just hoping that it would get better on its own, which it kind of did for a period of time. But I think that I never really figured out exactly what was going on. And so I just kept pushing and pushing and going and going. And then it's like you can only do that for so long until the wheels fall off a little bit. But it's interesting how many women seem to be going through it too, with either MCAS or histamine intolerance, things like that, which, I mean, my doctor said mine is secondary. So she's like, you have secondary MCAS, like something is causing it. You don't just like develop it out of the blue. And I think that, it's like what we were talking about before we started recording. We are in like toxic soup, and we're so overloaded with things that we're exposed to every day, and oftentimes not at any of our faults either. It's like it's hard to avoid because we can't live in bubbles.
Totally.
And so I think more and more people are, dealing with these things.
Yeah. It's kind of like I said, before we went on air, it's like everyone has a different size cup. Like it can be based on your genetics and your ability to detox, but we have all these like micro hits that are filling the cup. It's like, toxins in our environment that we're not even aware of, and then stress, and then continually like comparing ourselves online. And then we also have things like poor food and not exercising or not sleeping well. And eventually that cup just tips over. And it usually takes like, years to develop. So it's something that's brewing. And I think, yeah, we just need to, it's unfortunate because it's like a full-time job, basically. I mean, literally, this is my full-time job. So there's that. So everyone should also keep that in mind that I do this personally and professionally. So, it's my job to do these things, but it can become a full-time job for anybody. And that's why I try to just like share resources as freely and openly as possible, because it's taken me so long to figure so much of this stuff out, lots of trial and error, lots of like wasted resources and time. So, yeah, it's a difficult journey to navigate, and it's very common, right? We now know that I think 40% of Americans have 2 chronic diseases or more, 60% having 1 chronic disease. It's wild. I mean, children are developing diabetes, like these cancers are becoming more prevalent at younger and younger ages, and it's like our environment. It should be illegal, to be able to introduce things that are harming us in such a significant way. And clearly something has happened because the numbers are all there.